Good morning and welcome to coffee time. Get that set up there. So, coffee time every Sunday, same time. I talk about various topics. It's my chance to have basically a live communication with you. If you look on whatever equipment you're using, you'll find a place with the live chat. And so we can communicate that way. Now, I'm going to talk about my topics, and then the second portion of this, you can ask whatever questions you want. Please remember, and I'll mention it again, preface every question with 4 question marks, or there's a good chance it's going to be missed or overlooked. This began because of I've got a number of supporters, fair amount of contributors from time to time, and I wanted to have some way to directly connect and every week be able to answer questions. So that's the point. And if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. There's a link down there somewhere, and just hit subscribe. And if you hit the bell next to the subscribe, then you'll actually get notified. Okay, so today, what are we going to talk about? Well, I'm going to talk about coffee for a while. It is coffee time, actually. So I'm going to talk about coffee. I want to talk about a surprise visitor that's coming. Well, actually, he arrived in Colombia, and I want to talk about that. Some questions came up about the music that I use for videos, so I'm going to just mention that a little bit. And we'll talk some about the last video I did, some points that are brought up. And then the last thing I want to mention is something here that's quite controversial that's just come up, and it's all about motorcycles. So we'll get to that at the end. And good morning, all. Yes, coffee is a good thing. So I'm asked, well, you live there and you're in the heart of Coffee Town. Are there really a lot of differences in the coffees there? I mean, they're all the same type of bean and they're all grown in the same area, talking about Candio. So I get these kind of questions. And yes, there's a lot of differences. Now, many of these differences come from method of roasting, but there are differences there can be a difference a half a mile distance just based on the ground that's being grown in. Now, I'm not an expert, but I have interviewed experts on this. There's a real good one with a guy who runs Cafe Candio, which is a very large brand. It's right on the heels of Juan Valdez. And that was a very good interview. And so that interview wouldn't be hours long. There's a lot of conversation I had with him about things that would probably be boring to a lot of people that were not in that video. And I was just very curious about, the interview was for you guys, but I also took advantage of a ton of questions I have about, how it's grown. So yeah, there are a lot of differences. And if you really love coffee, like you might love wine and want to try different uh, years of wine and understand all of the nuances that go into it, there's actually more, what do they call them, flavoroids involved in coffee than there is in wine. And so if you're really that kind of person, you come here, you're going to be in heaven because it will never end. Now, my personal favorite coffee to buy and grind at home is right here. I don't know if you're seeing this right side up or if it shows up backwards, but it's Cafe Sorrento. Cafe Sorrento. This is my personal favorite. There's only one place that I've found that sells it here in Armenia. And what's funny is Sorrento is actually a farm in Calarca, which is less than 2 miles away. They're about 4 kilometers outside of Calarca. And so it's a very local coffee. Oh, I love it. I buy it in the beans. It's a medium roast coffee, which is my favorite method of roasting. You get into a darker roast and you begin to taste more of the roasting than you do of the coffee itself. I know there's people that, I want it as dark as possible and I want it as strong as possible. And that's all well and good if that's what you like. I mean, that's why there's so many different ways to do it. For me, it loses what I like about the flavor. And the darker the roast goes back to when I used to hate coffee. Oh, when did I hate coffee? Well, most of us, when we're young, we try coffee for the first time. God knows, I don't remember. I don't know. Maybe I was 12, maybe I was 15. I have no idea when I tried the first coffee. But what I remember is, oh my God, it was so bitter. It was so nasty. Why would anybody drink this crap? And the funny thing is, I still kind of feel that way about a lot of coffee. When I was in the Marine Corps was when I first started drinking coffee, because when I was overseas, we would go days without sleeping. And I was in before they had the government sanctioned amphetamine pills that they use today. And so you had to have something, or, I mean, you're working on helicopters, you don't want to fall asleep. You need to be alert, but it's tough if you haven't slept in a few days. So I began drinking coffee, not because it was anything of enjoyment. It was like, you kind of have to. Good morning. You didn't have a lot of choice, but it was like choke it down. It was horrible. So I went for years without really drinking coffee. And I didn't start drinking coffee until the craze came out where boutique coffees were a thing. Now, prior to Starbucks, in Rochester, New York, where I was at the time, there was this coffee place called Jelly Beans. And I went in there one time to meet somebody, and all they had was coffee and snacks, but it was coffee. So we're having this meeting, and you want to have something. So I ordered up. Well, what's good? He said, well, you might like what was it? Cappuccino. So okay, let me give it a try. Well, it comes without any sugar at all. So I put like half a spoon of sugar in, and I drank it. Damn, this is good. This is really good. This is coffee. I never had anything like this before. Well, prior to that, all I had was the swill. To me, it's swill. You may love it, but the best coffee I had to that point, and the one that was most palatable to me, was Maxwell House, and things like the Folgers Crystal and all this other stuff. To me, was just horrendous. It was horrible. And the exotic thing was actually brewing coffee in Maxwell House, and it's like I gagged the least on that. So, I go my whole life without much of a coffee experience, and then I stumble into that, and this is not any coffee that I remember. It was just so different. And then Starbucks hit the scene, and I go to Starbucks. I didn't like it. We're right back to it's over roasted. I don't know. I just didn't like it. And then Dunkin' Donuts actually was better. So I started becoming interested in coffee, and at some point they were selling this little cappuccino machine. It was red, and I think it was Oster. And so I bought it. It's like, what the heck? And I bought some beans, and I tried it, and I said, yeah, it's okay. And I kept experimenting, and eventually I found how to make good coffee at home. And so to this day, I don't drink very much. I might drink 5 cups a week. That's probably outside. And I almost never drink hot coffee after 12 o'clock. I do like iced coffee, and I'll make an exception once in a while in the afternoon. I'll have an iced coffee in the afternoon. So that's my thing about coffee. Now, am I a connoisseur about coffee? Well, I'm a connoisseur about what I like and how I like it. I've tried mocha pots. I've got a couple. I've done French presses. I've got a couple here. I've had a few, and it amazes me how French presses are so different. And if you buy one, don't skimp. Buy a good one. It makes all the difference in the world because of the stuff that'll bypass the seal on it. But I will tell you that the almost 20 years ago, my first time in Colombia, I was really surprised and disappointed. I met my later became my wife. I'm at her house, and her mother is going to make coffee, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be awesome. Colombian coffee. I mean, this is special. I'm here in Colombia, and I'm going to have Colombian coffee. And so I'm standing in the kitchen, which was the size of a closet, and it just had a stove top. And she's got this big aluminum pan sitting on there, and she just pours in some milk, and then she pours in a bunch of sugar. And so it's got sugar milk, and she's heating it up. And then she reaches up and she takes out this jar of instant coffee, and she starts spooning in the instant coffee, and she stirs that up, and that's what we drank. It was sugar milk flavored with instant coffee. It's called cafe con leche, but I've never had it so much milk and so much sugar except in the home. And at some of her relatives that we would go and visit, they would serve up something very similar. And it was really disappointing. But it wasn't bitter, but it was so disappointing. And I found out later it's because back in those days when Colombia was a really poor country, and I see Ecuador kind of in that place, the good coffees were precious, and they were all sent overseas for export money. And so it was too expensive for locals to buy on a regular basis. And what's really funny is the coffees that would be sold outside the country would then be processed, stuffed in jars, and sent back and put on the shelves, and they could buy that cheaper than if it was just coffee that remained here. I don't know how that works, but that's how it worked. But today it's a whole different world. I saw a video recently on YouTube where somebody was looking at Manizales, and he had looked at Armenia, and he said something. But this is what happens when you're only in a place for a day or two, and you see a lot of that. He says, well, in Manizales, there's hardly any places to drink coffee, but in Armenia, they're like constantly. Well, it's true about Armenia. You see coffee places everywhere, but in Manizales, it's no different. It's like it's the same. There's great coffee everywhere. Manizales is part of this coffee territory, and they love their coffee there. It's a university town with 5 or 6 major universities. There's 3 or 4 here, but there's a ton of university students, particularly from out of Colombia. They come there to go to school, and so you have a lot of that young yuppie-ish coffee, sit in a little cafe and discuss whatever communist topic you're going to talk about that you're learning in the university. I see a couple questions, but I'll get to them in a minute. Thank you for the comment. So here's my thing about coffee here in Armenia, and even though I don't drink very much, it's become a huge joy in my life. It's one of my joys here. Now, in the morning, I have my little ritual where I get up and I heat up my milk. I drink basically mochaccino, homemade mochaccino. I'll put in skim milk and I'll heat it up, and I'll take my coffee, 2 scoops of this, and I throw it in the grinder and I grind it up, and then I'll put it in the little single mocha pot. Generally, that's my preferred way to do it. And when the milk is hot, I put it in a cheap French press, a plastic French press. Well, it's got a glass body, but plastic around it. And with that, I can pump it 10, 12 times, and it doubles in volume, and it becomes very frothy. So I've got hot, frothy milk like that. You don't need a to do it. So I've got it like that. You can heat it however hot you want it. And so I put 1 heaping spoon of Milo, or you could put Nestle's Quick. I do that because chocolate removes bitterness from coffee. Chocolate and coffee are these natural couples, you know, like chocolate and peanut butter, I guess. And so it removes any bitterness. I don't like bitterness in my coffee. And so I put it in for that reason. And so that's what I'll drink every day. It's a pretty good sized cup, and I'll drink that in the morning. But there are mornings, if I'm going to go out and walk around, I'm going to pay bills or whatever, depending on where I'm going to go, I have my favorite places. So I go to pay my bills. So I walk down, and right there is Parque Fundadores, Founders Park. It's this long sliver. And right on the south end of that, and it's been in some of my videos, is this, well, there's actually a few little coffee places. It's almost like a mini food court. And you're looking out at the world, and you're watching, it's outdoors with umbrellas, and you're just watching the world. And I go there and I order a mochaccino, and it's insanely good. Probably the best coffee mochaccino in Armenia is right there. So I'll sit there for an hour or two, and I watch people go by, and I just kind of chill. I've already, paid my bills and gotten my money for the, next couple of weeks. It's really peaceful. I really like it. And I very often will sit there with my cell phone, and I'm responding to you guys, questions you send, emails. And I like to respond when I'm sitting there having a coffee, watching the world go by, feeling the breezes. It's really invigorating, and I love it. Hello, Reese. See you soon. So I love that spot. I won't say second favorite, but another favorite spot was in this last video. And I pointed out, here's my, and I misspoke, which I do a lot in my videos. I cringe. Here is my favorite coffee. What I meant to say was my favorite place to drink coffee in that part of town. So if I'm walking up and down Catorce, if I go to the Bolivar Plaza, or if I'm in Centro, I like that place. They have excellent coffee, and it's shaded between those buildings. They have their own outdoor seating area that's covered. It's just really good. There's other places, but what I find is this area is really popular with old retired Colombian guys. And they like to get together late morning into the afternoon with their buddies, sit, drink coffee, talk, laugh, look at the girls going by. It's kind of hilarious, actually. And so you'll see these groups of guys all over. Some are sitting on, stone walls. Some are sitting in little coffee things. And they have coffee shops outside where you walk with just, covered areas. They're more like coffee kiosks. But all of those coffees are really strong. So if you like espresso, if you like strong, bitter coffee, that you're going to drink down, you're going to be wired for the next 4 or 5 hours, that's where you buy it. Those outdoor kiosks. Just watch for the groups of old men and see where they are, then buy that coffee. So terrazza I like. Now, until I explored, the first places I went to were like Juan Valdez, because you know you're always going to get good coffee at Juan Valdez. And then one day I discovered Cafe Candio, which is like a Juan Valdez. And so I found that I like that coffee better. They're better at using the type of roasting that they do is more suitable for my palate. Although I love Juan Valdez, but Cafe Candio edges it out. And so if you go to the Portal Candio Mall, there's a kiosk there for Cafe Candio. And that's a fun place for me to go and drink the coffee, watch the world go by. There's a lot of things that go on in a mall, and it's right there at the food court. And so, you know, I'm drinking the coffee, I'm answering you guys, I'm answering emails, I'm thinking, I'm planning videos, whatever it is I'm doing. It's a good place for me to go spend an hour or two. You know, I like to do that. And then that's it. Those are my spots that I really like to go to, and that's my world of coffee. So, you know, I may not know, and I never will care to know all the nuances, but I know what I like. I know how to do it for myself. I have tried all kinds of coffee beans, and I've settled on this one. It's I wish it were easier to locate. Fortunately, it's almost always at the Lorales Supermercado up near Portal Candio. It's almost always there, but I've never seen it anywhere else. So I don't have to go to Calarca to get it. And you notice I say Calarca because the accent's on the tail end. Okay, I mentioned a surprise visitor. Well, I talk about it all the time. I lived here for a while before, and it was less than 20 years ago. I to this day have yet to sit down and actually figure it out. I used to say 15 years, but it's closer to 18 years. But my first introduction, I was in Pereira, and my first introduction came from was going to be my wife, her friend. She lived in a barrio in Dos Quebradas, which is part of Pereira. It's like a suburb of Pereira. And in those days, it was kind of like the poor area. Now it's not, but then Colombia is not. It's mostly middle class. So she had friends. She knew everybody. She was kind of famous for salsa dancing and all of that. And she had a friend that lived a couple blocks over, a couple building blocks over. And he had this beat up old Renault car. I don't know what year it was. It was old. And it was beat up, but it ran. And when she and I got close, she was actually, we didn't know each other when I first got there. But as we got to know each other and spend more time, she's going to show me some things around. And so she asked him to drive us. And his name was Jaime. He is now called James. So he drove me the first time I came to Armenia. And that's when I fell in love with Armenia. You know, we stopped at this roadside thing to relax for a bit, get a cold beer, homemade chorizo. It was crazy good. It's like some of these roadside stands for chorizo is the best in the world. And it came to Armenia. We went to different places like Panaka or the coffee park, the amusement park. You know, we saw things like that. But it's when I realized how stunningly beautiful Colombia could be. It was when I came to Armenia, and he's the one that brought me the first time. Well, it wasn't too long after that, I don't know how long, he moved to the United States. And we don't really keep touch other than we just kind of watch each other's Facebook. He played in a band. I know he loves his motorcycle sport bikes. He had a dog for a lot of years. His dog died and he was immensely sad over it. And eventually he got another dog. And, so I know just superficial things about how his life has been. Well, this week, or it's Sunday, so this past week, he's come back to Colombia to visit. And of course, we got in touch, and I'm going to try to interview him. He's a hell of a nice guy. I've never forgotten him. I always appreciated so many things about him and his character, his honesty, his friendliness, his willingness to, help me in every way he could. So he's back. We're going to get together, and I'm really excited for it. I'm really excited to see him again and to catch up beyond the superficial Facebook. And so that's new. All right, music. I'm asked, well, it comes up quite a bit actually. I like the music that you played in this video. Why don't you do more of that? Or I especially like the Latin music that you played. Why don't you do more of it? Well, understand that there's hardly any music that I can play on YouTube without them blocking the video, copy striking the video, deleting the video so there's just silence, including if I narrated. In other words, you can't use music like you used to be able to use. They're insanely strict on it. So I have so many, just Cafe Fundadores. I was there recently and did a video. Wasn't very long, and it was raining, and I'm sitting there, and there was something playing in the background, and it wasn't that loud, and it wasn't for very long because it was just a clip, and they didn't block the video. You can see it, but they put all these restrictions on it. They made it unsuitable for advertisers. If there's any money that's going to be made, it's going to go off to somebody else. So, there's so many different ways they penalize you, and you never know what it's going to be, and you very often have no recourse to it. But they provide a library of music you can use that's safe to use. Well, in the Latin part of the library, there's a total of maybe 9 songs. And I've used them all. And, you can't just use over and over and over. Yes, I have a theme song, but even if I use a couple that I really like more than a few times, people comment, why don't you come up with some other music? So, I'm sensitive to that. And this last one I played in there pretty much every Latin song available, including one that's about Puerto Rico. And not long ago, I did one that was about Dominican Republic, and I got crap from it. You're playing Dominican Republic, you're in Colombia, so what? They play all kinds of stuff here. It's a good song, and it's a Latin flavor. And just because they're singing about Dominican Republic, it's still the same type of music. And so that's the deal on the music. It's just, it's so restrictive. I do the best I can with it. I'm not about music for the videos anyway. It's about information. So, unless you're an artist and can give me rights to music, I don't have much choice with the matter. Okay, I was asked, you have that new camera, but in this last video, it's really shaky. And yes, you're right. And I've mentioned before, the problem with this Osmo, it has such a tiny screen, I can't really tell what's going on with it. It's only vaguely good to try to center it. It's not good for much as far as the screen goes, but it's awesome. Well, you have different modes, and I accidentally somehow got it on tilt lock, which locked the head. So instead of floating like the stabilizer would do, the thing was locked. So every time that I moved it around, it looked like it. And so I'm really sorry. I hate that jittery look. Fortunately, it wasn't too bad, but I was shocked. I've come home and I've download all these clips. For every video, I'll have usually uh, 15 to 50 clips that I have to put in and figure out how to sequence and trim them up and all of that. And so I come home and I took a look at these clips and I go, oh my God. So I looked at the phone, at the camera. I had to plug it in to here so that I could see what was going on. And I saw it was on tilt lock. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how it happened. So that's why it shook, and why it hasn't been like that previously. So it's just one more thing I need to be careful about. Okay, we're almost done. Last video. The point of the last video, which was my walk around Central, is I had just done the video in Pereira. And the first one, I walked through Centro of Pereira. And I was talking about Bolivar Plaza. Every place has Bolivar Plaza. It's like the main park or plaza of every city in Colombia. And for Simon Bolivar, you know, it's a measure of respect. And, you know, there was so much urine smell and all of this. And, you know, I got a lot of flack about saying those things. Well, and I appreciate where you're coming from, but I'm going to say it. If it's like that, I'm going to say it. I said plenty of things that were good, but I'm going to say, you know, as I'm doing these videos, I'm giving you my impressions, how I feel about it. I don't know any other way to do it. I'm not a tourist bureau. I'm not your, you know, I'm not here to sugarcoat it to convince you to go somewhere. I have nothing like that in my mind when I do these videos. The only thing I have in my mind to do these videos is to, as I walk through and I see something that interests me, I try to document that in the video and then share it with you so you can kind of see it through my eyes. And it's going to be biased. It's going to be opinionated because that's how it is. So as I'm walking through, you know, there were certain things, you know, it's like, why'd you show the guy that was sleeping on the sidewalk? Because he was sleeping on the sidewalk and I had to step over him. And I wasn't going to cut him out of the video to sanitize it because that happens. But I also talked about how in Giron, you know, how it happened there and the drunk guy in the middle of the street, cars are going around him. I didn't say it was only there. I just said it's here also. You know, so it's just a reality. It's a fact. And if you're offended by facts and truth, these aren't the videos for you. But I thought I would do a comparison because I constantly ask, why do you like Armenia more than Pereira? Because Pereira is this, that, and the other thing. And yeah, it's, you know, I'm not saying it's not a good place for you. I'm just saying it's not a good place for me. And I've tried in so many ways, so many times to explain why that is. You know, I'm not going to try to convince you to hate chocolate milkshakes and you have to like strawberry because that's my favorite. I don't care what you like, but I'm not going to drink a chocolate shake if I prefer strawberry to give you some bogus impression. You know, so if I go to Pereira and there's things I don't like about it, I'm going to tell you. But there's a lot of good things there, and I made a point to show those. That's why I went and did that series. So I thought I would compare. So I showed Bolivar, and I didn't show a lot of it because it was kind of gross. It's a shame. It was so dirty. It's just so full of just unpleasantness, and it stinks. And so I walked through Central so you could compare, and then I ended at Bolivar Park. Now, I didn't say this in the video why, so I'm telling you now. You could see Bolivar Park, and it's this civilized, clean place, and the streets were clean. And I intentionally went to the seediest part of Armenia in Central. I intentionally went there and walked through and told you, you know, that, you know, if you want to do anything illicit, here's the place to go. But, you know, I gave you the real picture. And And so it's just one more reason why I prefer here. It's just a better atmosphere. Now, somebody brought up, said, well, you know, you get this in Armenia too, and I see drunks on the street in Armenia too. Yeah, you see that everywhere. It's a matter of degrees. It's a matter of how much. What you won't see here is I won't go to the Park of Life, for example, walk through and see 4 or 5 migrants peeing in the bushes or peeing on the sidewalk. I won't see that. It will never happen. I won't walk in Central and see people just stopping and peeing on the street, you know. But in Pareda, I accidentally caught it on video. You know, Linda's pointing. You know, it's like, get, you know, look, look, look. It's just it's a different place, a different atmosphere, and you can live in parts of Pareda where you'll never see that also. But I just thought I would do a comparison. So maybe you could see it through my eyes and why I have a preference of one over the other. Um, so, like I said, I didn't mean to offend anybody, but hey, you know, the video didn't lie. You know, here's this guy peeing, and it wasn't planned. Uh, One more thing, and I'll hit these questions. You can start asking now. The last thing I want to bring up is motorcycles. Motorcycles in downtown. There's a big controversy here right now, and I noticed it the other night. Um, I heard all this commotion outside, and there were motorcycles. And looking, it was like this little line of a little parade of protesting, and the signs are going the other way. I couldn't really see, and so I asked Cooley about it, and she says, "Well, they're protesting this new law." Well, she didn't know more than that. She just said that second person is it's going to be illegal for them to ride a second person on a motorcycle. Excuse me, in Armenia. So I get a hold of my police friend, which I've told you about, and I asked him about it, and he says, "Yeah, you know, there's a big controversy." He says, "Let me check the details," because he's in homicide. But so he comes back like a minute later, and he says, "Well, here's the deal. It begins February 21st, and it's the mayor, and he said that you can't ride two people in the downtown area." Now, I have no idea how that's supposed to improve or be a benefit to anything. I don't get it. And people are up in arms, and it makes no sense because you can ride two people legally. Now, if you said 3 people or 4 people, well, obviously you should have a seat for each person. So it's controversial. I don't think it's going to be able to stand. I think people are really upset about it. And even if the motorcycles annoy you because they cut in and out of traffic and they kind of act crazy, I think people's desire for freedom is going to override that. But we'll see. I'll let you know what happens. Um, if you want to see something that could become a violent protest, this could be it. I don't know. Uh, that's sort of tongue in cheek. So, all right, questions. Where do you buy the coffee in Armenia? Is it available ground? It is available ground. Uh, I will never buy it ground. But as I mentioned, Loralis Supermercado is where I can buy this. Now, other coffees, you can buy all kinds of different sorts of coffees from all over the place, like in Olympica, all around. Uh, Loralis recently has become this coffee mecca because they keep having these different farms come in and do taste tests, so you can walk in on like today on a Sunday or a Saturday, and there'll be some different farm in there with their coffee giving away free samples. It's pretty cool, really, and it's been ongoing for a while now. So, but you can buy all kinds of coffees. So just because this is my favorite doesn't mean it's going to be yours. And I would encourage you to go through what I did. Just keep buying different coffees, and you can even get small sample packs in a lot of them. And if you run into something, if you go to a farm, you can you can buy a big thing or get a little bit of a sample. So how to get coffee is not a problem. Oftentimes, music makes the video annoying to watch. Yeah, that's true, and sometimes sometimes I make a mistake where I thought the volume was right, and then I find out after it actually published to YouTube. Sometimes things are a little different. You know, I publish it to YouTube, and it's a little too loud, and so it's kind of annoying. Plus, you know, sometimes what I think is okay for music, maybe it's not your cup of tea. And you know, so maybe it's like, oh my god, I don't want to hear this. So um, I'd play a lot of Beatles and Eminem if you know, if I could. So uh, how frequent do you travel or visit Finlandia, Salento, or Pihao? There are three pueblos I'd love to live in. um, I don't know how frequently. I've been to Pihao only once. I've been to Finlandia a bunch of times, and Salento more than I can count. It's it's not a place for me that I'm interested. You know, unless somebody comes and wants to see it, and I'll go along. But it's not a place. There's no reason for me to return and return and return. I mean, they're just little villages. Uh, Fascinating. I highly recommend, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. If you, it, the most gringos that live in this area actually live around Salento in these very expensive country farms. Um, More live there than live actually in Armenia. And there's only about 200 in total. This came from the police guy. So what else we got here? Have you lived in central Mexico, the colonial towns? What made you choose Colombia? I've talked a few times. I've even got a comparison of Ecuador, Colombia, and Mexico. I've gone to Mexico a ton of times in my life, and I'm not going to repeat the stories. I don't care for Mexico for a lot of reasons. My personal thing. It's not to say there aren't some beautiful things in Mexico, but today would even be more the case that is not a place I want to go. What seems stable is not really stable. It's just not. It's not for me. Dominican Republic is not for me. It would be way too hot. So I have no interest in Mexico. Why would I choose it? I discounted it. What happened to a friend in Mexico would not happen in most of the countries on this planet. And the fact that it could happen there by the authorities was just absolutely ridiculous. And I would never live in a country where that goes on a routine basis and people think that's okay. It's not okay. It's bullcrap. It would never happen here. It would never happen in Ecuador. Even when things are bad, there's certain things that just would not happen in the civilized world that occur in Mexico. So I just don't want any part of it. I don't want to, you know, run down Mexico. I know a lot of people love it, and that's great. That's good for them. I'm glad they like it. It's just not for me. You know, chocolate and strawberry milkshake. You know, we all have our likes and dislikes. There are seedy places in every city. Absolutely, absolutely. Hello, Ryan. Yeah, it has been a while. Did you spend much time in Loja? Um, yeah, I spent some time in Loja, and every time I went to Vilcabamba, I would stop and spend time in Loja. I did a couple videos back then. Um, it's a nice place. You definitely want to, you know, speak Spanish. There's a gringo population there, more than what's here in Armenia. Um, it's cheaper than Cuenca. The altitude is better. I could live there. Um, I never felt the desire to live there. You know, after I go there, there are things that I liked about it. People are so much friendlier in Loja than they are in Cuenca. Uh, there's a lot of positives to be said, but we all have our own taste. So when I go there, it's like, yeah, this is an interesting place, and I like this, and I appreciate that. Well, you want to live here? No, it's not for me. I don't want to live there. But that doesn't mean I don't like it and appreciate it. I love going to the Grand Canyon, but I don't want to live in the Grand Canyon. Okay, I like preparing my own fresh seafood, reef and deep sea fish, not tilapia or trout. Is there a good fresh seafood market or store in Armenia or Pareda? Well, it depends on what you like. Yeah, they have tilapia and trout, but they have other fish as well. The thing here that stands out to me that I kind of miss is lobster for one, but not so much, but crab. I mean, like, snow crab in a pinch, king crab legs, Dungeness. I love that. It's like my favorite seafood, and it's just not here, not available. But it was very, very limited in Ecuador, and here in Colombia, I don't know that much about it. But if you go into a seafood market, like there was one in Manizales that was an area that I would walk by a lot, and they had this seafood market. That's, they sold other things, but it was seafood. And there were, I don't know, types of fishes. There were probably 20, 30 kinds of fishes there. So I don't know. I don't know how to answer it, but I will say that you may have to compromise some of the things you like, but I can imagine you're going to find things that you like. Life is a compromise. There's certain things that you will have in Seattle that you won't have in Rochester, New York. But then Rochester, New York will have some things that they don't have in Seattle. I defy you to find a garbage plate in Seattle. So, it's just, life is like that. So where you are and all the things that you like and partial to, no matter where you go, don't expect that it's all going to be like that. But you're going to find, the right compromise for you. I find here in Colombia is such a minimal amount of compromise, where one of the things I didn't like about Ecuador is you have to compromise so many things. There's just so many things that are not available or just out of reach. So I don't know. I don't know what more to tell you on that. Okay, I think that's it. Last call on questions. Do you have any questions? Yep, there's one popped up. I currently live in Cuenca. I wonder if the beef in Armenia is better. Here in Cuenca, it's very hard to find a good steak. Yeah, hard is, that's an understatement. And if you look at some of my original videos, I talked about the horrendous beef in Ecuador. And there's a reason for it. They don't raise cattle for beef. The meat that they sell there is milk cows that no longer give milk, and they're just tough, nasty. It's just horrible, and they have this weird foul aftertaste, and it's shoe leather. It's just disgusting, and that's why beef is the cheapest cut of meat in Ecuador. It's an issue now in Cuenca. It used to be you couldn't even get good hamburger, but now you can. And they, in Supermercado, they actually carry some cuts of steak that people say, oh, it's awesome. Well, it's not really awesome, but considering the alternative, at least it's edible. But here in Colombia, you can get whatever you want. If you want a Texas, U.S. Angus certified whatever, you can get it. If you want Argentinian beef, you can get it. When I was in Pareda, I saw that Coruja supermarket, and I made comments on there that one of the nice things about it, that supermarket, is on a regular basis, you can walk in and get different cuts of U.S. beef or Argentinian beef or Colombian beef. And Colombia is a cattle country. They grow cattle for eating the meat. And so it's so much higher quality. So the worst meat here is going to be better than the best meat you're going to get at Supermaxi in Cuenca. So yeah, it was a pleasure when I was living there, and I would come here every month or every couple months, basically. One of the things that I would do is I would eat beef, which when I lived in Cuenca, I would just rarely touch it because it was just so nasty. Does Colombia have the disease rates like USA, diabetes, heart disease from? I have no idea. I can't pretend to know. You know, it's like you'll have to look that one up. Um, you live whatever health style that you want to live here. I mean, somebody said something about I would want to live in Colombia because all they have is these greasy fried foods. I don't know where that comes from. Yes, they have greasy fried foods, but it's not all they have. It's not even a major part of what they have. There's all kinds of things. Greasy French fries, if you want it, you can get it. Uh, hot dogs everywhere. But that's not the staple. That's not the norm. And here, I think people consider it more of a treat than anything else. But you'll see fat people here. You'll see people, that I wouldn't want to be them, but most people tend to be kind of normal and relatively trim. Um, I think health is going to be what you make of it. It's not, and that stands the same in the U.S. You can buy good food in the U.S. You can buy organic. You can buy heirloom. You can get free range, whatever you want to term it in the category. You can get good, healthy food. You just buy it and feed yourself. You don't just because there's fast food doesn't mean you have to go eat fast food. And that's why it kills me when they want to pass these laws about, oh, in New York City we're not going to allow you to drink soda. No more Coca-Cola for you. Well, what do you care if somebody wants to drink Coca-Cola? I'm not a soda drinker, but I don't care if somebody wants to drink it. I don't care if they want to smoke. None of that stuff bothers me. I could care less. People really should just be focusing on themselves. So, if you want a healthy diet, it's certainly here. Um, I actually eat pretty healthy, although I don't intentionally eat healthy. It's just the way I've always eaten. Yeah, I love my hamburgers, but you don't see me eating them every day. Um, some communicating going on here. It's hard for me to read this. I'm trying to find the questions. Um, what's the best U.S. bank for expats? Charles, Capital One, yes. Charles Schwab and Capital One 360. There's no fees from either one of those. I don't have any fees on. I have Capital One 360. I researched before I came, so it was over 5 years ago. I figured it out, and it's been golden for me. I have no fees on the 360 account. I have no monthly fees. They actually give you money every month for me because I have so little money. I might get a penny or two, but they have a interest back thing. So I never pay a fee on that account. I don't pay any fees at the ATMs. It's perfect for me. And Charles Schwab, while I don't have it, I've talked to so many people that do, and they have virtually the same type of thing. So those are the best. There may be some others, but I know those work, so that's what I would recommend. Question is something your question at the end. Typical meals for you in that area and price. In what area and price? In Armenia, and what's the price? I don't eat out that much, but it runs. It's different. In the first floor of this building, they have lunches that are 6,500 pesos. So that's what, almost $2. The cheapest I see around is about $1.60. The most expensive lunches I'll see around are, oh, maybe $3, three and a half, $3.50. If you're comparing to Cuenca, the lunches are cheaper here and they're far better, healthier for you. In Cuenca, you get a lunch, there's almost never any vegetables. It's usually some kind of red onion with a couple pieces of tomato. Here you get vegetables, salad. You know, it's like one of my favorites is a salad with mango cut up in it. It's delicious. They love coleslaw here, so that's, you know, it's a common thing. Also in Cuenca, your meat, it's usually some little tiny thing. It's more like a taste of it. And here, for example, if you get chicken, you might get a chicken leg. You know, there's more of it, and it's better. The lunches here head and shoulders above most of the ones I had in Cuenca, although there were some in Cuenca that were excellent. But I would just say on average, it's hard to lose here. So, you know, the price is $1.60 to maybe $3.50. That's the range. You usually get a choice. That's another thing. You get choices here, where in Cuenca you kind of get what, you know, here you get a choice of a soup usually. Usually it's one is a cream and one is a broth style. You can get rice or potatoes. You can get beef, pork, or chicken for the meats. I don't get rice, and so what I'll usually do is they'll give me double vegetables and you know, exchange for the rice. And sometimes you get a little dessert thing. It's more like a taste, a mousse bouche, you know, a single bite, and a juice, something to drink. Now, where Cuenca has it over most of the lunches here, is the drinks here are not always natural, but they're traditional, like agua panela. It's really kind of a sugar water with a squeeze of lime in it. You see that here and there. I hate it when that's all they have, and I just order a bottle of water. But a lot of places will give you a bottle of water in exchange for that juice, so you don't even have to pay extra for that. On the first floor here, they'll do that. You know, so it's a well-rounded, filling. I don't know if I've ever eaten the entire lunch, and those are the prices. But I don't eat them very often. Generally, I eat here. If I go out, I actually try to go to a place that has a menu that if I'm going to go out, I want to get something that I really like, not just something that, you know, to fill a space. I can do that at home. So, you know, that's me. But if you want to eat your lunches out every day, save some money, that's what you're going to spend, that's what you're going to get. Okay, you mentioned your police friend said something about the number of local expats at 200. Was that only in Salento, or that's the entire Armenia Salento area? There's a couple hundred, and most of those are in the Salento area. But that number is including Armenia. What's the best? How much for good health insurance? Well, the EPA insurance, which has no age limit and it has no pre-existing conditions, but there's a number of different providers, so there will be some differences, which includes dental, not cosmetic, but it will include dental. Runs about $37, $40 a month. Now, depending on your age and situation, you can get add-ons, which will just enhance the insurance that you have. And if you max out on the add-ons, you can spend over $100 a month, but it can be worth it. You know, it's like the difference between a hospital room that you share and having a private room, or having no copays, or having no charge for an ambulance versus having to pay $20 for an ambulance, or just a lot of little things that if anything ever did happen, you'd probably be glad that you had it. Okay, I think that's it. Hopefully I got them all. And we're right on time. So thank you for watching today. I look forward to seeing you next week. And subscribe. Please keep the comments coming. I think I get to all of them. I found one yesterday that had been sitting for about a week. So if that's you, I'm sorry, but I try to get to them right away. Feel free to contribute. I'm saving up now for my next trip, and it's going to be saving from whatever you sent. So that's it for today. I'll see you soon.